Hey everyone, Alex Terrace. This is healthhacksreviewed.com. I'm a dealer distributor for over 100 cutting edge health equipment companies. You can find me on my website, healthhacksreviewed.com. And again, I do educational consulting, curating, content for all kinds of different health hacks and wellness tools. I have multiple websites, not just that one, but you can contact me most easily on it. And I also sell all this equipment as well. So I'm somebody that people talk to, whether you're a practitioner, just an everyday user, to figure out what might be the best brand or brands in a particular product category. And in this video, you'll kind of learn why my services, which again, my consulting is at no cost, is super helpful. And so in this product category of whole body vibration training or whole body vibration machines, it is very confusing. It's actually beyond confusing. It's actually ripe with deception. Deception at the factory level in China, and deception with vast majority of those who import these machines, slap their label on it, and then resell it. Now, there are some companies that aren't just like straight up importers, slap their label on it, throw a different shell onto it or casing, do some marketing, et cetera, et cetera. There are some more like, I guess you could say like legitimate, well-established vibration companies. Not many. I do work with those very few. And prices go anywhere from like, $1,200 up to $25,000. You don't have to go quite that high unless you're in more like a super busy commercial location and you want to last forever and ever. But anyway, so let's get into it. So the reason I'm doing this one is somebody asked me to do a review video on Life Pro or Life Pro Fitness, and that's just because they happen to be new kid on the block doing as far as a marketing campaign goes. You may have come across them on social media or wherever, and here she is doing a plank position on this. So I'm going to actually show you how to discern this product, and the questions that when we actually go through the video, you will actually learn also the questions you should be asking companies in general, and what to look for, what all this means, what to watch out for. So let's go first to, there's something that does annoy me a little bit about this website, is scrolling down here. All right, the Rumblix 4D. Okay. So this is the plate if you are totally new to machines. That's the thing on top that you stand on. So if you hear me use that term, plate, that's what I'm talking about. It's the thing you stand on. All right, so first thing is you want to make apples to apples comparison, right, between brands. And by the way, in the end of this video, I will share with you what my favorite go-to brand is that I actually own and I use every single day, and I've had for a long time, and generally is one of the older companies in the industry. I will reveal that at the end of the video. So first thing is you want to make a spec comparison, and so a couple things you look for is amplitude. That is how far the plate moves that you're standing on, how far it moves up and down usually. Okay, the range, right? And then the frequency, which is normally in hertz. That's that guy right there. Okay, that's another thing that you want to get from companies. And then speed levels, that can confuse you, but basically that's like a control panel thing. So they're basically taking that 4 to 40, which is really like a range of 36 hertz, and they're breaking it up amongst the 60. Does that make sense? So then you can kind of like, since there's 60 is greater than 40, you can basically like more slowly ramp up in speed. There's slightly more options than just 36. There's 60. So it's like 2 speed settings per hertz change, if that makes sense. All right, so I'm not sure if I did the math on that right, but anyways, that's okay. So, but speed level is referencing that. It's just a control panel sort of thing. So that really confuses a lot of people. You don't need that, by the way. It's just a control panel thing. A lot of control panels just have you select the actual hertz that you want to use. One thing you may want to look for is, this one's like super basic, but some have like an app, not many, but some are a little more sophisticated. They're like different workout programs you can follow along with and it automatically switches or tells you what to switch to next. Anyways, so the power levels, I usually pay no attention to that because the other specs are more important. They tell you more about the engineering and things like that. Now, one thing that is missing from this spec sheet that you should ask a company for, and is sometimes a red flag if they don't tell you, and you can actually calculate based on their settings, assuming some of these specs are real. That's the biggest problem in the industry. I know it sounds crazy. You're like, oh my God, it's hopeless. It's not totally hopeless. There are some companies that are honest. And you can always ask these companies and say, hey, do you have a third-party engineering firm report? And by the way, those do exist, and I have them on most of the major manufacturers in China. And just so you know, most machines are made in China, and there are a couple really good ones, but most are not. And most are imported, like ones that look nearly identical. So I'm not necessarily saying this brand, but they are nearly identical. And when you look at the internal components, all coming from the same few manufacturers in China, and they usually get these types of machines, like this machine. It might not be this exact one, but ones that are nearly identical for about 20, 30, 40 bucks max, they import it. Okay, so it's usually like a 10x markup. So that said, you can imagine that internal components and the engineering, let's be honest, is not great for longevity. Okay, so when you buy a machine that's this low cost, and there's certain models that you have to watch out for more than others, and you can usually tell, at least I can tell at this point, just by literally the shape of it, the actual exterior shell. It's a crapshoot how long it's going to last, especially depending on your weight. So for me, because I know these products like the back of my hand, and I've sold many different ones, cheap ones, expensive ones, the best out there, everything in between. I know how they hold up. When you see 330 pounds, I would never put anybody that heavy on a machine like this. Normally, some of the best machines in the industry can handle that weight class. If you're like, honestly, 200 pounds and over, a machine like this one and other nearly identical ones, it's just hard to say if it may have problems in the near future. That's the truth. So if you do weigh a fair amount, I would try to use the machine for very short stints, 2-3 minutes, get off, let it cool down, and then use it again in like a few minutes or something like that, or throughout the day. Don't do like a super long workout. And also, if you have a high volume and you're trying to get this for your whole family or have lots of people, or like if it's a commercial location, forget it. But if you have a high volume of usage, also not the best machine for that. You really need to know what you're buying if you're going to have a high volume used machine. Okay. All right. So 3 power levels. Yeah, that's interesting. We won't get into that again, as I said before. Okay. So this is actually a very confusing plate. They are not actually sharing all of their specs. I think that they have 3 different motors for 3 different types of movements that the plate does, based on me looking at their other brands. But in these specs, they're like too lazy or whatever to actually put that on here. You'll see what I mean in a second. So I'm actually going to go to a different one where they actually have their specs laid out more clearly. All right, so let's just go with, let's try this one here. I think this one had more of the specs. Just a website, web developer thing, I'm guessing. Anyways, so here we have the 3 motors, as I was saying, right? And so on the other page, they decided to tell you the wattage of each one. Not that it freaking matters, honestly. If they try to sell you on this concept, just different companies like, oh, we got a high watt motor, oh, we got 200 watts, oh, we got 400 watts. It doesn't mean anything. You need more to assess the quality of the engineering and the performance of a motor. You need more specifications. You need a lot more information, honestly. You really need to even take your eyes and look at it, like under the hood, to even truly know, okay, how it performs. But what you can ask for is a factory test. And what do you want on that test? Well, the first thing that you want to know is the specs. See, these are the specs, okay, for all these different plate movements and the speed settings. You want to say, I would like to see a loaded and an unloaded test. That means they put weight on the machine, then they run it, and they also run it without weight. Now, most of the factories are guilty of giving the specs without any weight on it, and they give that and use it as a selling point for companies that want to buy from their factory and import it because it makes their specs look good. As you can imagine, if you load weight onto some of these machines, their range decreases and their speed also decreases because they're not engineered that great. Now, some of the best or better machines out there, of which there's not many, they will have almost no decline at all when they have the plate loaded with weight. Okay. Usually you might see like a 1 millimeter change with weight on some of the better machines. But anyways, either way, why are you asking for that test? Because if they don't have it, don't even waste your time. Number one. Number two is if they do give it to you and they haven't done a loaded test with weight on it, you're wasting your time. Because it has to do with quality control also, right? What if like they could build a machine that goes to 40 hertz, but imagine if they put a 100-pound weight on there and it ran for 5 minutes and then crapped out. You would never know. Wouldn't that be like closer to a real world test to actually put some weight on the machine? See how like ridiculously stupid this is? But this is literally what you deal with, okay, in the industry when you're getting to. So yes, I'd like a test with a loaded plate and an unloaded plate. Okay, so there are third-party engineering firm reports that I do have that I mentioned before on most of the factories that produce most of the brands. You may see a lot of new brands these days, but they usually come from the same manufacturers that have always been making them for the most part. Just a different shell, different exterior, trying to fool you into believing it's something different. So now, what do I want to say about pulsation? Pulsation, let's talk about the different plate movements you can get. The ones that are most studied are oscillatory or pivotal. Pivotal and oscillation are the same thing. It's like a seesaw motion. One side of the plate goes up while the other goes down. It mimics your walking or climbing stairs. Your hip goes up, your hip goes down. The other is lineal,
New visitor.
Lineal, lineal, okay? Now, they don't actually mention that here because they want to, like, through marketing, appear to be different. But most machines out there historically have always called, if their plate goes up and down like an elevator, like the whole thing moves up and down like an elevator, so not a seesaw. They call that lineal motion. So lineal and oscillatory are the two most researched types of plates, again, when you look at the research studies. When you get to any other type of movement, so like lateral, or also the popular, like trendy, I should say, elliptical, spiral, or lateral, okay, or triplanar. So if you see any of those, that's something that we have like almost no research on at all, okay. They'll make up all kinds of like great sounding stuff, trust me, I understand, but mostly in general, exercise physiology sciences are about gravitational forces that go vertically, not that way. If you do see, there absolutely is like lateral, so side to side, exercise physiology studies on like lateral exercises you can do, which are fantastic and super important for like core stabilization, preventing injuries. But the companies that have lateral moving plates, which really move very minor amount, 8 millimeters or less, and I don't know if I quite believe that full 8 millimeters, but regardless, they try to make the association like, oh, you know, all these benefits to lateral exercises, and our plate moves laterally. You can't. Yeah, it's completely different. Lateral exercises, functional biomechanical movements, to a micro moving lateral plate. So they try to associate the two, but there's really not much research or anything that's been done with these types of lateral stuff. So I just stick with oscillation and lineal. Oscillation is way more comfortable, and I believe actually has more benefits. It challenges the core stabilization muscles way, way more. And most people, again, they prefer it's just a lot easier on the body. The lineal motion is more like a jackhammer effect. The vibration is kind of uncomfortable. So this company, they're calling lineal pulsation. Confusing, but they just want you to. Most companies want to make it harder for you to make a comparison, apples to apples. So if they call it pulsation, you're like, oh, that's something new and unique. And it's like, not really. They just changed the name. Okay, so that's why it's a low millimeters. Now, on cheap machines that are trying to pull off lineal, I'm skeptical that they were even able to pull that off. It's very expensive. And then also, over time, like 6 months later, a lot of times with the cheaper machines, you find that it's no longer, if let's say that's real for a second, with a loaded loaded test or somebody standing on it, over time likely to decline and get less. But yeah, it takes a lot to move a mass on top of a plate, especially if they're claiming that amount. You'd think it would be easy, but it's not, and it's very expensive. So remember, they have to make like a 20, 30, $40 plate at the factory. So yeah. Anyways, oscillatory, believable. Yeah, 12 is, that's not hard to achieve. What is hard to achieve? Well, so first off, let's back up a second. They don't actually tell you what the speed range of that movement is, correct? They don't tell you what the speed range of that is. Okay, so when you see like a combined range, some companies do that. They're just saying, hey, between all of these, this is the range. So the first thing is you want to actually ask, what's the max speed for your oscillatory? What's the max speed for your lineal or your pulsation? And the max speed for the lateral, or who really cares anyways. But caring about these two maybe. So the reason you want to ask that is because most machines just get to 15 hertz max, 15 hertz for oscillation. And a fair amount claim they get to 15 and don't actually get there. And then a lot do, okay? And the reason you're asking is if they claim that they go on oscillatory higher than 15, any company for that matter, you need to say, show me your tests. And also if you go to my YouTube channel and you go to type in the search for like vibration machines, or go back to the beginning of some of my first videos, you'll see me actually test the speed on my own with some gadgets. So looking at third-party engineering firm reports, testing machines myself, some machines don't get to 15, and a lot of the ones that claim they go over 15 are lying, basically. And or on the factory level, they're also lying. So with lineals, because they only have to move a small amount, you always will see a higher speed range. Okay, so it doesn't have to travel as far. So you'll see many times, 25, 35, 40, 45, 50, depends. That's normal. Now, what is the more important thing when I said about GForce? Remember that? So when you have the plate pushes against your body, it increases the mass of your body or your weight. So if it's like 3 Gs, that's 3 times your body weight. So your body has to respond and adapt to 3 times your body weight, as an example. Okay, but obviously very quickly, just multiple times a second, in 1 second. So the reason you ask for the GForce spec, so one, if they can't give you that, they won't give you that, just walk away. 2 is if they do give you that, you also have to make sure that their speed setting frequency is also correct. So in other words, you have to get real specs, and then you actually have to calculate the GForce for yourself with a calculator. So they have it on the website that I'll show you at the end of this video for the company that I really like. They have a little GForce calculator. If you can't find it, go into the chat window and ask. But anyways, yeah, so pretty annoying, right? All these things you have to jump through. So why is the GForce important? Because I'll give you a perfect analogy, and then you'll really understand why vibration machines that are producing, even if vibration machines companies might be producing a high speed range, and especially with the oscillation in particular, it doesn't mean a whole lot therapeutically or with the results that you'll get, because producing high speed is cheap and easy to do. What is expensive is when that plate is moving at a high speed and also has a lot of force behind it, or torque. Okay, so what does that mean? Very simple. Imagine if somebody punched you 2 times really quickly in the shoulder, but they tapped you, right? They just barely hit you. It was just 2 quick times, right? Like a knock knock. And then imagine another person also hits you in the shoulder 2 times, but they put all their weight behind it and a lot of muscle force as well. They hit you really hard. Now the speed in both examples is 2 times in 1 second. They hit you at the same cycle, right? The same frequency. 1, 2. Okay, same speed. But one person put a lot of force behind it, a lot of acceleration. Do you see how that's radically different? So of course you'll respond very differently. You might lose your balance. It might, your muscles will have to respond. So basically it's the same analogy, okay? So as this plate moves up and down, imagine it, some brands pushing you with a lot of force and some barely pushing you. So they can have the same, sometimes they can have the same speed range, but radically different effects on how your body adapts. And the other example I would give you is, I was gonna say, this is kind of a weird analogy, but if you picked up a weight and that weight looked identical to another weight, but the one weight was made out of a denser material, so one has a greater mass, but they both have the same dimensions. Do you get what I mean? So if you lifted up one that was heavier, your body would have to respond to the heavier mass. It's just super simple stuff, but it's not simple when you just literally don't understand that, that there's more to the story than just basically giving you the speed of something. Does that make sense? So there actually are a lot of companies that are guilty of that nowadays, leaving off the GForce. And also being dishonest about one of the specs. So that way, even if you did know how to calculate the GForce, you would come out with something that sounds or seems impressive. Okay, why do they do all that? Well, they do all that to justify the price point. They do it to justify like a 10x markup. Okay, because then when you compare these specs to other machines that might be multi-thousands of dollars, right? And then you say, well, this one's $449. Why would I spend a few thousand or even 1,500 when I could spend $449? Do you see what I mean? And because when you look at the specs of both, they seem similar. So that's the whole trick that I'm revealing to you. So the key is you have to find out the real specs and you have to ask the right questions to make an apples to apples comparison. So that's why I'm saying this industry is a son of a bitch. It's just it's very difficult for consumers to figure out. By the way, so lateral motion, I don't care. Triplanar motion, I don't really care about that. I'm not interested in that. Oscillatory machines, I am interested in. I don't like lineal machines as much. Oscillatory, I think, work the body a lot more. The goal for you, if you basically want to increase circulation in your legs and get some mild lymphatic flushing, mostly in your lower body, a plate that has that speed range of up to 12 hertz. I'm going to show you a different one. So basically, yeah, a cheap machine that goes to like 12 hertz is fine for basically that type of super basic need. Like even if you did this position right here, this would shake your body a lot. And that, for somebody that is like recovering or super old or disabled or just trying to flush their lymph up here, like something super mild, right? Okay, like in other words, you could do that like in yoga, but instead of doing yoga, like maybe you just do this instead. In other words, something super like basic, simple, low impact. You could probably get away with the machine. Again, as I said before, when you get super cheap machines, though, when you know the real price, it's kind of crapshoot. It's just you're never really sure how long it will last. Let me get on this one here because I want to give you one more example of something you should look at. So this is you can go on alibaba.com, and you can find a lot of the factories that produce the various machines, stuff like this. All right, so on this one they do the GForce, which makes you wonder, right? Is it the web designer on the other models who just forgot to include the GForce? Or is it perhaps that the GForce is so low on the other ones they don't even bother putting it? Something to think about. I think it's probably the latter. So in this one, they do put the GForce, and this would be a really good example of what I was saying before. Now, in my opinion, this is so low. It's nice that they put the GForce, don't get me wrong, but this is so low, I think it's completely worthless. The only and this, oh my God, that's interesting. Wow. I've actually never seen a machine that low for this model either. It's so strange. Huh. It's the price. $349. Wow. So this is like, yeah. So this shell and model, this must be their like low end, because they make another, the couple factories in China that make I wouldn't call them higher end, but basically a couple tiers above this that get up to oh gosh, what's the speed? I think it's 14, is it? Anyways, get up to 14. So this is I guess how I would describe this particular model that they're sending. Oh my God. All right. So first off, at that speed range, can you get some lymphatic flushing if you're on there for long enough? I think so, for like an older person. They also may not weigh too much either, because if you weigh a lot, the power behind this machine, yeah, you're just not going to get a lot of movement. You'd be better getting a mini trampoline. But if you're like an older individual, maybe disabled in some way, and you can hold on to the handlebars on the side, and again, you're just maybe looking for some super mild flushing, and you're going to be on here for like 15 minutes. It's possible that you could get some achievement with that. And at the price point, not bad. Obviously, still a huge markup, but it's hard to say how long the machine would last, and if you have any issues with it. That's the only gamble per se. So yeah, so let's back to this. So yeah, low GForce. So the plates that are like really therapeutic, that give you the benefits that all the companies claim, which is this right here. See those? So all the companies talk about those claims as their selling points, but the key is, isn't it true that these benefits were determined from research studies? And isn't it true that in those research studies they were using different plates that had certain specifications, right, and settings? So then the question would be, okay, if you want to get one of these benefits, or some of them, you have to get a machine that is high performance, that is close to or better than the specs that they were using in the research studies. Does that make sense? Okay. Otherwise, I promise you, you are not going to get these benefits, period. So you just, basically based on that statement, you've just eliminated 90% of the brands on the market. Most likely, if you're just like, Alex, what about this brand? You probably picked from the 90%. Okay. So what will like cheaper average machines or most machines do? They will flush your lymph. Okay. Again, we're not sure for how long the machine would last before it has a technical issue, but most will do that. And as you do shake yourself a little bit, yeah, of course, you will get your blood to move a little bit too, obviously. And mainly, though, is in your lower body, okay, because the GForce is so low, and the speed. So will a lot of that flushing happen in your upper body? Very, very mildly, and it will also depend on how much you weigh. So it would be so minor, that's why I'm saying that you'd be better just getting like a cellar sizer, which is a really good mini trampoline, before you do something like this. And that cellar sizer actually will truly last you the rest of your life, and you could probably pass it on, like, or whatever, or resell it. I mean, it's for life. So anyways, you want to be closer. If we're now talking, hey, what are these specs, Alex, that will give me these benefits over here? These sound awesome to me. Okay, well, generally you're going to want to at least aim for 10 Gs. So yeah, 10 Gs. And then speed setting wise, you're going to want to aim for at least 25 hertz. Yeah. So you're like, oh, well, okay, well, one of these other ones over here, that was like 12 hertz. Well, they weren't telling you the G-force behind it. And there's certain physiological responses in your body. What's this here? Let's click on this one. There's certain physiological responses in your body that only kick in, they found in studies, around 25 hertz. So literally, if you don't actually hit certain specs, nothing will happen. Like, you literally won't have the same effect. I'm just trying to find here. There's like all these just ridiculous, like I don't know, a lot of these are like foo-foo, like ridiculous versions of things that just don't mean anything at all. Like it just comes down to high speed, high G-force, and it doesn't really have any of that. In other words, I'm saying you don't really need to like differentiate. They're trying to like differentiate all these things with all these little doodads and like add-ons and stuff like that. And look, I'm going to agree that if you're doing like these different sorts of exercise thingies, it's good to do exercise with resistance bands. Is it better to do some movements on something that is moving, like a plate that's moving, versus doing it on the ground or on something stable? Absolutely, 150%. It is always better to challenge your core stabilization muscles and recruit more of your nervous system on something that is moving, okay? 100% true. I fully support that. So if you're just a person that's trying to do something mild, basically like some floor routine or at-home routine versus
New visitor.
doing some exercises on the machine, incorporating the machine versus the ground or like a couch or a bench, right, or a chair or something like that that's not moving. Absolutely brilliant idea. Great idea. Okay. But if you're trying to actually go after those benefits again, right, that they keep on listing wherever they are, okay? If you're trying to go after those benefits here, these guys, you have to be with a high performance machine, okay? So let me show you a high performance machine. If you catch this video in time, the best sale of the year is July 4th, and you get 15% off and free shipping. Any other time, you can use my promo code in the description box below to get 10% off. But let me just show you what a this is one of the most original machines, what high performance means. Now, of course, first step is, hey guys, can you prove your specs? Well, these guys can. In fact, they spent $35,000 having all the other manufacturers' machines tested. Can you believe it? And they have those third-party engineering firm reports, independent. They spent their own money doing it. They were thinking, hey, we could educate consumers, and it totally failed. People are too swept up by all the marketing, and price shopping. So anyways, these price points are ridiculously low. For some they do allow you to finance and break up the payments, by the way. But for actual real specs here, for pivotal also is oscillatory, the seesaw motion. To get these speed ranges with these actual GForce maxes is a huge accomplishment. It took them a long time, a lot of money. And yeah, you will only find three other brands in the entire industry that actually can achieve something similar. Yeah. So that's what high performance looks like. So this is their low end, 10 Gs. Remember the other one was 1 G, and the other guys don't even tell you. For 14, if you tried it side by side, this would literally scare you. You would stand on it. If you put it on, let's say 30 hertz, and you tried to stand there, you would step off of it almost immediately compared to the other one. The other one's like you could practically put a pillow on it and take a nap, like no joke. On this one, you would be a little frightened by comparison. But that's good because basically you actually work your way up there so that your whole body can handle it. So you work your way up, okay? And then it challenges you over years and years and years and years. It keeps challenging you because you have a large range to work with. So that's the other reason why you try to buy a machine and invest your good money in something that really truly has a high range and high G-force. It's a it works your body. And these specs actually are now within the range of what you need to elicit certain sorts of metabolic functions in your body that are synonymous with the studies, okay? Anything less, honestly, is a gray area. So if you're like, hey, can I get benefits with something, that's, lower or this or that? As I said before, you can get some mild lymphatics, some mild blood flushing, moving of the blood in the lower extremities. Or obviously if you're doing a plank push-up position, you can get some of that too in the upper body. But that's about it. Again, if you're looking for more of that larger list of benefits, you just straight up cannot get it with other ones. You need to go with something like this or some of the other ones. And why I say this is a good price is because these specs right here, there's another couple great machines that have been in the industry a long time selling it for $14,000 to $20,000. So anyways, if you have any questions, my promo code again is also below. Would love your support, and I can always give you a comparison video or email you on my website, healthhacksreview.com, and about any other brand of machine. I've studied them all. And also, vibration training may not be the best thing for you. Sometimes there's other modalities. So just you can also let me know what your health goals are, or if you're a business owner, and I'll let you know if this is the thing to pursue.